Hey grade 11s. Okay, welcome back. This is our last lesson of this unit, which is really exciting, and then I can give you your project after this. So this last lesson kind of takes into account all the skills we've learned so far and gives you a tool and a process how to make a budget for yourself. Now, if you ask me, this is the most practical lesson that we've done all year besides the credit card stuff. Okay, so understanding how credit card interest works and how to properly use your credit card and then how to budget properly. I think these are like so far the most important things we've talked about. So I would really recommend that if you're in the habit of giving your notes away to younger students or throwing them out or burning them, as I know many people do, keep this lesson out. I think you will actually find it helpful. Okay. So lots of blanks here that you guys can be filling in. Creating a budget is a bit of a process, and so this lesson is like very long, but it's actually just one enormous example. So I tried to find some really realistic data to make an example out of, and then there's like 3 pages to finish this example, but I think it'll give you a good idea of how to make a budget. Okay, 2 important terms, surplus and deficit. Surplus means you are not spending as much as you're making. So that means that you have money left over at the end of every month that you can do other stuff with besides your budget. And a deficit means that you are spending more than you are making. So you are running out of money. You're getting into debt. Okay. So if you are in a surplus, this is amazing. And if you are in a deficit, you need to revisit your budget. Okay. So I'm just going to write that in a short form here, because we never want to be going into debt, okay? And so if you're in a deficit, that means essentially that you're going into debt and you want to revisit your budget so that you can get out of debt and get into a situation where you're either breaking even, so you're spending the same amount that you're making, or you get into a surplus. Okay. So the first part of making a budget actually is to figure out if you're in a surplus or a deficit. And so that is why we did all those examples from last lesson, because that's how you know exactly how much you make or save. And we also need to remember, super important, that a budget is an estimate, not an exact tool. Okay, that's written right here. Pardon me. And that is because there are always expenses that are variable, like we talked about, okay? So we are going to always be conservative, which in this case just means careful, by overestimating your expenses, so slightly making them more expensive in your budget than they really are, and by underestimating your income, so by slightly saying you have a little bit less income than you actually do. We're going to look at this type of stuff in this example, don't worry. And the last tip before we actually start this example is that a smart budgeter always pays themselves first. Super important, okay? This means that you're going to put away savings each month before figuring out what else you can pay for. You never want to leave your savings until afterwards, because then you might not have anything left to save, right? So you always want to save some money and then figure out what you can pay for. And kind of a good rule of thumb is to be able to save 10% per month. That will leave you in a very good spot. If you can save more than 10%, that is fantastic. Okay? All right. Kate works on salary and earns $2,259.09 per month. She wants to make a better budget, so she keeps track of her expenses and her income for 6 months. This information is below. Okay, so this is going to be our very long example, looking at Kate's lifestyle and then figuring out what she can afford on that salary. Okay, as you're going to see, we're going to be doing a lot of scrolling back and forth because I'm going to need to look at this table a bunch of times during this lesson. So just be aware of that, and sorry, bear with me. And the next thing that I'm going to quickly make a note about is that I actually filled in a little bit of this before I started this video, because otherwise I'm going to be wasting so much of your time just copying all this stuff in. So you guys can just pause the video to copy those things in whenever you want to. All right, so let's look at Kate's kind of her income tracking, or whatever, her little chart here. So you can see that she tracked her income and expenses from April all the way to September, and starting in October she wants to have a better budget. So we're going to just take a look here at the categories. We have rent, utilities, phone, cable, internet. Okay, these are all grouped together because they're kind of like services that you pay for in your home. So making sure that you have water and electricity and all that stuff. The next one is groceries, then car payments, then gas. restaurant meals. Now, I will just make a note that these are not all mandatory categories for everybody's budget, okay? Oh, pardon me. Apparently I'm a little tired today. But these are kind of normal categories for most adults, I would say. Restaurant meals, maybe some people would say is not necessary. That's fair. You don't have to have that category. And entertainment, same thing. But it's nice to do something fun every once in a while. Then there's car insurance, which I will just remind you is different than car payments. Okay, so car payments is like paying off the car loan that you got from the dealership. And car insurance is paying MPI to make sure that you're covered if you get into an accident. Clothing, again, some people would say that's not necessary, and I would agree with those people, but for some people, a clothing budget is something they really find important, so they prioritize it. That's okay too. And then miscellaneous, that's always stuff like, oh, I needed to pick up a calculator, or like I had to get tape for my house, or like that kind of random stuff. I needed to buy a new keychain, I don't know. Those are like super random examples, but that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at there. Okay. And then also just worth noting, usually inside groceries is where people put stuff like personal hygiene items. So like shampoo and conditioner and soap and lotion and all those things. Okay. So just worth noting. All right. So the first step to finding the way to make a good budget is to start by calculating your average monthly expense in each category. And so that's why Kate has been very wisely tracking her information over the last 6 months. And so what we want to do is add up all of the total cost, or all of the costs in each category per month, and then we're going to divide it by 6, as you can see here, to find its average, right? And why are we dividing it by 6 is because she tracked her income and expenses for 6 months, so we're doing the average over that time. All right, now, first one is actually rent, and you can see I haven't written anything here, and that's because for rent, it's actually very easy, right? Every single month she pays $450 for rent. That's it, okay? So even if we added up $450 6 times and then divided it by 6, it'll just give us $450. Whoops, there we go. Okay, so her average rental cost is the same every month. It's just $450. For any category that changes, however, so like utilities and so on, I did already write them all out here, and then we're going to just add them up together and then divide by 6 in each case, okay? So I'm just going to punch these into my calculator. So 150 plus 125 plus 125 plus 155 plus 150. I'm realizing I missed a month. Oh, there's 200 at the end. Whoops, sorry guys. So just add that onto your list, okay? Plus 200. That gives me $905, okay? And then I'm going to divide that by 6. And that is going to give me $150.83. But like we saw up here, you're always going to overestimate your expenses, okay? So that means we're going to round that up a little bit, okay? So I'm going to say therefore $155, okay? Well, now one reason to do this is because it will make it easier once we plug everything into the budgeting tool. That's one reason we do that, and like rounding it to a 5. So like 55 or 60 or that kind of thing. But the other reason is also because then if it ever goes above your average, you're not like instantly in trouble because you don't have enough money left over anymore. We've already kind of taken it into account that things kind of go up and down. And so if it ended up being 157 one month and then 153 another month, you'd be fine because it would even out. Okay, so that's why we do that. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of these. Okay, so for groceries, again, I added this all up and I got $1,210. And again, we're going to divide by 6 because we're finding a monthly average. Okay, that's going to give me $201.67. And so again, we're going to just round up. And now groceries is something that in particular fluctuates quite a bit depending on like sales and stuff. So I'm going to round that all the way up to $210. Okay, so we're just saying that on average, she's spending $210 a month on groceries. The next one is car payments. Car payments is very similar to rent because if you go back and look at the table, you can see that her car payment is consistently $175 every month. And so because of that, the average is also just going to be $175. So we can just leave that as it is. All right, next category is gas. Again, I've written these all out for us already, and then I added them up, and when I added them up, I got $665, and when I divide that by 6, that's going to give me $110. Let's see if I can squeeze this in here, and 83 cents. So I'm going to round it up to $120. The reason I'm rounding that one up, again, a big jump, almost $10, is because gas prices also changed like a lot. And so we want to make sure we're being really careful to account for that. Okay, so you can see how in every category I'm accounting for needing to spend more money than I might necessarily have to, or than Kate might necessarily have to. But this is the smart way to budget, because then you know for sure that you're not going to get caught by surprise by some sort of expense that you can't afford anymore. Okay, so that's always the strategy. All right, restaurant meals. So we're going to divide $700 by 6, which gives me $116.67, which I'm going to just round up to 120. Now, some people would say this is a lot per month. In fact, I would say this is a lot per month for one person. But again, it's what's important to Kate that matters in this case. And so we're not going to make any changes to her budget. We're just going to go off of what she has been spending. Okay. Here we go, entertainment. When I added that all up, it gave me $1,085. And I'm going to divide that by 6, of course, because we're looking for, again, still the monthly average, right? And when I do that, it gives me $180.83. And it seems like, in this case, for Kate, if you're looking here, she has like a low amount, like 75 or 50. But then she also has some like extremely high amounts, like 350 or 325. Like that's a lot, okay? So she has a huge amount of variance in this category. And so because of that, I'm going to round this way up to $200. Okay, so normally I would just round it up to the next 5, so like 185. But you're noticing here that she spends like a very different amount each month on entertainment, and so I'm just going to round that up like quite high so that she has lots of room in her budget for this. It's also interesting to note that the last 3 months were very expensive for her entertainment budget, and if you look, the last 3 months were summer, right? July, August, and I guess September's not summer, but still kind of the end of summer there, so I'm guessing she's spending more on entertainment because of the season. So that's also really important to think about when you're budgeting, because things like the season, like for example Christmas is a very expensive time of year, will make a really big difference. So what time of year you're in will make a huge difference in how much you're spending. So, worth noting. Okay, car insurance is like the other fixed expenses. That's the same every month. So, it's the average is the same as the monthly payment, which is just $115. And because it's not going to change, we don't need to round up or down, right? It's just like a constant cost. Okay, clothing. Again, really important here. We're going to notice that there's actually like these dashed lines in 2 of those spots. That means she spent no money those months on clothes, but that doesn't mean we don't take that into account when we average it, okay? So you can see that I put $0 2 times in this category for calculating, and that's because that still affects the average, right? So we want to make sure that we're taking into account the fact that even though some months she spends nothing, other months she might spend quite a bit, and so we need to kind of average that out to a constant amount for her budget, okay? So when I added that up, that gave me $560, and when I divide by 6, again, to find the monthly average, it gives me $93.33, and I'm going to round that up to 100, mostly because 100 is a super nice number, but also because we were talking about before, she has a huge amount of variance in this. She has some months with no spending and another month with 350, so like that's pretty crazy. So let's account for that by rounding up more than normal. And last category is miscellaneous. So that's just like all that random stuff that we were talking about before that you just need to buy sometimes. Whoops, sorry. There you go. And when we divide that by 6, we're going to get $66.67 per month. And so I'm just going to round that up to 70. Okay, perfect. So that's all of our monthly averages, and we're going to use those numbers on the next page here. Okay, this is a huge budgeting tool. This is actually a very good budgeting tool, you guys. So if you want to save this, you're more than welcome to. Okay, you don't have to, of course. There are other budgeting tools you might find, but I like this one quite a bit. Okay, so monthly savings is the first thing. So remember that we're always going to be saving first. Pay yourself first, and then you can talk about how much you can spend on other stuff. Now, the reason that I put $2,250 instead of her exact amount, which is up here, is because remember that we're going to underestimate our income just a little bit. Okay, now it might not sound like a lot, just underestimating by $10, but if you think about that, $10 a month makes $120 in a year, which is actually like a decent amount of money that you could be saving extra of in a year, right? So that's why I rounded to $2,250. Okay, so it says that she wants to save 10%. every year, or every month, pardon me. So we're going to multiply 2,250 by 0.1, which is going to give me $225 of savings every month automatically. Whoops, that's very messy. Okay, there we go. So that gives me, oh my goodness, you guys, this stylus, 225, much better. Okay. And we're not looking at an annual amount, although you can use this for a yearly budget if you'd like as well. So that's why I left those spaces there for you. Okay. Now, this category is all about monthly expenses. So that's why I blacked this area out, is because there are no yearly expenses when it comes to monthly expenses. Okay. We're just looking at per month. Now, what I'm going to do in this section is I'm going to put those monthly averages, there we go, that we just found on the previous page into all of these categories. Okay, so we know that she spends $175 on her car payment every month, $450 on her rent, and blah, 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 right? So I'm going to also just cross off mortgage, because in this case, she does have rent that she's paying, not a mortgage, okay? If you had a mortgage, you could cross off rent, and then you would be able to keep track of what you were paying for. Now, the next one, you're going to notice that telecommunications, so cell phone, internet, and cable, is split up from utilities in this chart. That's because some people prefer to keep those budget items separate, but Kate has tracked them together, so we're going to combine those into a total one category, okay? Now, here's another one. Groceries and restaurants often go together in budgeting tools because they're both food, and so we're going to have to add both the groceries, which is $210 a month, plus the restaurants, which is $120. Okay, so now just again to clarify, where am I getting all these numbers I'm putting in? I'm just taking the amounts that we calculated back on this page and then the bottom of this page and putting them into the budgeting tool. Okay. All right, clothing and gifts, another one that people like to lump together. Since Kate only has clothing in her budget, we're just going to include that value, which was $100. Now, Kate had no car maintenance category, so we're just going to put a 0 there, okay? She did have gas, however, and we calculated that average to be $120. She also did not have a category for personal care, okay? I'm guessing she included that in her groceries, but that depends. Like I was saying before, everyone budgets a little bit differently, so not everybody will have exactly the same categories, and that's totally fine. This is just like a helpful tool to help you think of all the possible things that you might have to pay for. Okay, she does have an entertainment section though, so that was $200. She also had a miscellaneous section of $70, and she had nothing written down for household costs, so we don't have to put anything there. Okay, now we can see that there's on the bottom right of this section a total section. Okay, so I'm just going to add those up. So I'm just grabbing my calculator here. I'm going to add up 450 plus 175 plus, etc., all the way down to the bottom, okay? And I'm just remembering to add every single number together that I see here. We're not going to skip any lines that we have come across. And this conveniently, this is totally a coincidence, it works out to an even $1,600, okay? A lot of the time it'll be like something random, like $1,605 or $1,573, okay? So it doesn't have to be like a regular kind of nice number. It can be any number. All right, the next category is annual expenses. Okay, and we know that car insurance, well, actually you guys might not know this yet if you don't own your own car, which most of you don't, but if you have car insurance, it's an annual amount, but they give you the option to pay it monthly. Okay, and so she has done that, so we're going to put in the monthly amount here and not the annual amount. Now, she had no section for life insurance, property tax, home insurance, or vacations, so that probably means that she doesn't own a house, and we can confirm that by looking here, right? She's paying rent, not mortgage, so she's not going to have any of those homeowner things, and she may not be able to afford going on vacations yet, so she might not be saving for that. So that means that every month she's putting $115 towards those yearly costs, which in her case is just car insurance, but for many other people includes a lot of these things. Okay. So now that brings us to our summary category, which ultimately tells us how much money she has left over to spend, or if she's in a deficit, which means we need to change her budget a little bit. So we know that her average monthly income is $2,250, and we know that she's saving 10% or $225 of that. We know that she's spending $1,600 on her living expenses like food and rent and all that stuff, and that she's also paying $115 a month towards her car insurance. Okay, so when we do that, we're going to take this $2,215, we're going to subtract all of those other expenses. Okay, so we're going to just grab a calculator here. Oh dear, sorry, just dropped that. 2,250 minus 225 minus 1,600 minus 115. And that is really awesome that we get left over with a positive amount of $310. So she is in a surplus of 310. So that's yay, because that's very awesome. Okay, you always want to have a little bit of money left over that you can save for other things that you might be saving for, like a vacation, or anything that might go wrong that is unexpected, like if your car breaks down or you have to pay for medication or something that you just weren't expecting. Okay, so there we go. All right, that is the end of this lesson, and this is just a blank page. I don't know why it's there. It's actually the end of our whole unit, okay? So I hope you guys find this budgeting tool really helpful. I think this is super practical, and I know that lots of you will be thinking about university soon, and you're going to have to be able to pay for stuff like your classes, so I would really recommend using a tool like this to help keep you guys on track, okay? Again, if you have questions ever about anything, just message me. I would love to talk to you about this, and our speaker this week will be also talking about this kind of thing, which I think you'll find really interesting. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.